Admiral Zeke Thor's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the impossible readings on his command display. The massive Drakmarian warship Dominion's Fist hummed with barely contained energy, its kilometer-long hull bristling with weapons that had conquered 100 worlds. Yet the small human vessel drifting before them defied every law of physics the Empire had codified over their millennia of galactic dominance. "Run the scans again," he commanded, his chitinous mandibles clicking with agitation. "Sir, I've run them 17 times," replied Science Officer Veltana, her tentacles dancing nervously over her console. "The readings remain consistent. That human ship, it doesn't have a hull." Zeke Thor's primary eyes focused on the tactical display, while his secondary eyes monitored his crew's growing unease. The human vessel, if it could even be called that, appeared to be nothing more than a collection of floating components held together by invisible forces. No metal framework, no protective armor, no conventional propulsion system. Just discrete modules, suspended in what appeared to be empty space, moving in perfect harmony, as if guided by some incomprehensible intelligence. "Impossible," growled Commander Harthek from the weapons station. "No civilization builds ships without hulls. It violates basic engineering principles. How do they maintain structural integrity? How do they contain atmosphere?" The communications officer's voice cracked with uncertainty. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." On screen, the main display flickered, revealing a human female with short auburn hair and remarkably calm demeanor. She wore a simple gray uniform that bore no resemblance to the elaborate ceremonial armor favored by Imperial officers. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Wanderer," she said, her voice carrying an odd musical quality that seemed to resonate through the bridge's superstructure. "We've received your ultimatum, demanding our surrender. We're afraid we must decline." Admiral Zeke Thor leaned forward in his command throne, his imposing 2-meter frame casting shadows across the bridge. "You dare refuse the Drakmarian Empire? Your pitiful world has been marked for annexation. Surrender now, and your species may survive as servants." Captain Chen smiled, and something in that expression made several bridge officers unconsciously step backward. "Admiral, I think there's been a misunderstanding. You see, we're not just declining to surrender. We're here to inform you that your expansion into this sector ends now." "Ridiculous!" Zeke Thor's voice boomed through the bridge. "One primitive human vessel against the might of the Imperial fleet? Harthek, target their ship. Show them what happens to those who defy." "Sir." The tactical officer's voice was high with panic. "I can't get a weapons lock. The targeting systems, they can't define the ship's boundaries. It's as if the vessel doesn't exist in normal space." Captain Chen's image remained serene. "Admiral, your confusion is understandable. You're thinking of ships as discrete objects, metal containers carrying their occupants through space. But what if ships could be something more? What if they could be alive?" As she spoke, the human vessel began to change. The floating components started to pulse with a gentle bioluminescence, and the spaces between them shimmered with what looked like neural networks made of pure light. The ship wasn't held together by physical constraints, it was held together by consciousness. "Biosynthetic integration," whispered Science Officer Veltana, her voice filled with awe and terror. "They've merged organic and quantum technologies. The ship isn't just controlled by artificial intelligence. It is an artificial intelligence, a living, thinking spacecraft." Zeke Thor felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. In 300 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. The Empire's ships were marvels of engineering, but they were still fundamentally machines, complex tools operated by their crews. The human vessel was something entirely different. It was a partner, a symbiotic entity that worked with its human crew rather than merely carrying them. "Impossible," he repeated, but his voice lacked conviction. No species has achieved true biosynthetic integration. The neural complexity required would be beyond any civilization's capabilities. Captain Chen's smile widened. You're right, Admiral. No species has achieved it. But we didn't develop this technology alone. You see, when humanity first ventured into space, we didn't conquer worlds. We made friends. The display split, showing dozens of other vessels materializing from what had appeared to be empty space. Each one was different. Some appeared to be made of crystalline structures that sang with harmonic frequencies. Others looked like living coral reefs that had learned to fly, and still others resembled clouds of metallic insects moving in perfect synchronization. The Resonari taught us how to sing to quantum fields, Captain Chen continued, gesturing to a ship that looked like a massive crystal harp. The symbionts showed us how to merge consciousness with technology. The collective demonstrated the power of distributed intelligence. And we taught them something in return. We taught them how to dream. Admiral Zekthor's hands trembled as he reached for the retreat signal. Around him, his crew stared in horrified fascination at the impossible fleet arrayed before them. Ships that were more than ships. Technologies that treated the laws of physics as gentle suggestions rather than absolute constraints. This is why your empire is terrified, Captain Chen said, her voice carrying a note of sadness. Not because we're stronger than you, though we are. Not because we're more numerous, though our alliance spans hundreds of species. You're terrified because we represent something you can't understand or control. We represent cooperation instead of conquest, symbiosis instead of domination. The human captain leaned forward, and for a moment, her eyes seemed to reflect the living light of her ship. Admiral, your empire has a choice. You can continue your path of aggression and face species that have learned to merge their consciousness with the very fabric of space-time. Or you can learn from us. We're not your enemies. We're your teachers, if you're willing to learn. Zekthor's finger hovered over the weapon controls, but he knew it was futile. How do you fight an enemy that exists partially outside normal reality? How do you destroy ships that might not be entirely physical? How do you conquer civilizations that have transcended the need for traditional technology? All ships, he commanded, his voice heavy with defeat, withdraw to minimum safe distance. We need to reconsider our approach. As the Imperial fleet pulled back, the human vessel and its impossible allies maintained their positions, patient as teachers waiting for students to understand a difficult lesson. In the depths of space, the old order was crumbling before something entirely new, something that the Empire's rigid military doctrine had never prepared them to face. The age of conquest was ending. The age of cooperation was about to begin.